love, black family? It's Dr. Umar Johnson, the Prince of Pan-Africanism, live here in Jackson, Mississippi. I want to give a shout out to Sister Angela and the Mic magazine. Make sure you support, make sure you read, make sure you buy, make sure you spread the good word of the Mic magazine. All the information that is relevant to our community, you can read it right there in the Mic magazine. Hot topics, cutting news, and more importantly, full cover stories on some of the most important issues that we don't see talked about in other places. Dr. Umar Johnson, I support the Mic magazine. Much love to Jackson, Mississippi, and the whole state of Mississippi.
Dr. Umar, finally got you in Mississippi.
Yes, indeed.
Tell me why you're here.
I came to do a lecture. I spoke at the Lamone Owen College in Memphis, Tennessee. Powerful program. 3 nights ago, Friday, went extremely well. And of course, I had to take that ride up to Jackson to pay respects to the big elder, attorney, mayor, CHOKWE LUMUMBA. He's meant so much to me and the entire African community that I could not miss the opportunity of attending his homegoing ceremony, which was phenomenal. It was spectacular. It wasn't more about lamenting over his death. It was more about celebrating the rich life and legacy that he left.
Now, after speaking to a few people at the celebration, is what I call it, one guy said, well, you know, I feel like our culture was taken from us. And I told that young man, you know, well, today it was given back to us. Even though he's no longer here with us physically, our culture was given back. It was more like a history lesson. How do you feel about that?
Well, I agree. I think that Ancestor Lumumba's homegoing ceremony had all the elements that a true celebration of life should have. When you walked out, you didn't walk out sad or glum. You walked out energized and with a firm sense of purpose that we have to finish the work that our good ancestor began, dying with his boots on, struggling until the end, giving his whole life to the people, whether it was grassroots organization or advocating to the legal system. So for me, I'm glad that I went. So many of the messages that were offered by the different speakers who memorialized Ancestor Lumumba were very uplifting, empowering, and also validating, you know, for those of us who are in the frontline struggle. So again, for me, that wasn't about sadness or grief. It was about a celebration of a life and a spirit that will always be with us.
I noticed they had all the African dancing and things of that nature that we wouldn't catch.
The singing.
You're not going to catch that in mainstream media.
You're not. All the aspects of African culture were on full display at his homegoing ceremony.
Yeah, so that was more like a history lesson in itself, because I myself have never ever witnessed African what's the word I'm looking for? I've never witnessed that, and it was like a history lesson for me.
True indeed.
So just glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Understand that you have your own day here in the city of Jackson.
September 19th is Dr. Umar Johnson Day in Jackson, Mississippi. At least it was, you know, during
it still is. We're going to celebrate in the Mic magazine, so it's your day.
Right. You know, but either here or there, I just appreciate the jester, you know, that came from the good elder.
Free the land?
Free the land. Free the land, free the land, by any means necessary.
Have a great day.
%of them are something other than the child's culture. That's a problem. Even if the psychologist is not a racist, it's still a problem because they're not culturally competent. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. When your son comes to my office, soon when he walks in and sit down, because I used to be a black boy, I know whether or not he got an attitude. I know whether or not he's going to try to BS his way through this test. I know whether or not he's tired. I know whether or not he's trying. I know whether or not he cares or not. Because I'm from the same culture. Our nonverbal nuances are totally different than they would be for a white kid. But if I'm not African American, and this child fails this IQ test, and he ends up with an IQ score of a 60, and now he's looking like he has a mild mental retardation problem, if I'm white, I might call retardation when it was only an episode of laziness. And you do know in America, the black boy is 4 times as likely as the white boy to be diagnosed as retarded. There's no mystery. I know why. Because our boys are showing up, not doing their best, and the psychologists are scoring them like they tried. What is the conduit? What is the conduit of all testing? Interest and motivation. Black kids routinely score 20% lower than what they could have just because they don't feel like it. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And you know why they don't feel like it? Because many of you are raising black boys for the prisons.
Teach.
Many of you are not fulfilling the #1 responsibility of someone raising a black male. And what is that? To teach him discipline.
That's right.
He must have it. Excuse me. I need some water. Brother Ty, hook a brother up. I was in Gary, Indiana the other night and somehow caught a cold up there. Didn't get a chance to go to Michael Jackson's home, but maybe next time. The American social order is waiting to destroy any black boy who doesn't have self-control. Thank you. Okay, you didn't get this from nobody working for the FBI, right? No FBI work. No FBI work. I don't need that. Okay, this lid was off. No sir, no sir. You're not gonna get me. You're not gonna get me. No sir, no sir. Damn that, okay? My school not open yet. What is discipline, black parents? It's the ability to teach your boy, that young man, how to do what needs to be done when it got to be done, irrespective of whether he likes it or not.
That's right.
Let me give you an example. You here right now, listening to me. Now, for half of y'all wonder why you didn't bring him with you. But there may have been a good reason why, because he needs to hear me as much as you do. He might supposed to be home doing his chores. He might supposed to be babysitting. He might supposed to be cleaning his room. But can you say 100% equivocally that you know he's doing what you told him to do? Most of us, our kids don't do what they got to do unless we watching them. Because we haven't raised the child with discipline. And do you know why? A lot of us like to take a break from parenting. Y'all do know we take breaks, right? You raise them until about the 5th grade, and then you take a break from 6th to 9th. Y'all know what the hell I'm talking about. And then when he's in the 9th grade, 14, you realize that he's starting to become like the ones you wanted to keep him away from. And then you try to get him back. But discipline is foreign to your house because discipline wasn't a part of the culture, so now he's resisting. And now you're putting your hands on him. You damn near have to threaten his life. Not because he was a bad child, but you let him go too far away from the path.
That's right.
And when you let a child go too far away from the path, then you have to resort to extreme discipline measures to bring him back. It's called taking a break. Let me explain something to y'all. You are going to put your time in now, or you want to put it in later. You can raise him from birth to 17, or you can raise him from 17 to 34. Now that might be on your couch, or it might be in jail, but you want to put your time in. So whether that's going back and forth twice a week, taking him money, putting money on the books, paying for lawyers, or you want to put your time in. You tried to cheat when he was a child, you want to make it up when he's an adult. And then some of us got the audacity to say, I don't know what's wrong with him. Let me tell you what's wrong with our child. All of our children, everyone in Memphis, pants sagging, dropout, dope head, dope fiend, dope seller, domestic abuser, whatever his vote is, you are his problem. The black community created that crisis in youth that we got. That's right. Because once upon a time, we used to make a way for our young people. Once upon a time, they could go to the church or go to the mosque or go to a community organization and say, look, my teacher mistreated me. And somebody had come to his aid. We don't do that no more. In fact, he comes home and tells his mother, Mom, I got suspended today for something I didn't do. Now, sometimes he might be lying, but a lot of times he's telling the truth. But you being a woman, trusting white supremacy, you take this teacher side over your son. And so now he can't trust you or the teacher. See, let me explain something to y'all. This miseducation thing, Ain't about education at all. Do you know what it's about? It's about a black male child suffocating because he's being exposed to too much feminine energy. Did y'all hear what I just said? He got a feminine energy at home. It may be a positive black mother, but it's still feminine energy. His spirit craves the masculine balance. He goes to school, he got to deal with a reactionary white female. So he got sexism and racism in school. And you wonder why the hell they dropping out like this. A child can't make themselves put up with something that they know was not designed for them. So when they drop out, we look at them like it's something wrong with them. We don't want our kids dropping out, but I need y'all to understand the problem ain't them. It's you in the system.
That's right.
If we know that these middle-class white women are not going to adequately teach our kids what they still there for. And don't tell me because we can't afford to buy them or build them a school of our own, because we know that's a lie. After all, how much money you spent on Christmas this past season? How much money you going to spend on Easter?
That's right.
How much money you going to spend on the 4th of July? And I got a big problem with that holiday. July 4th, 1776. How in the hell you find the audacity to cook pork chops on a day when our ancestors were still under enslavement? July 4th, 1776, my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother Betsy Bailey, who raised Frederick Douglass, was a 2-year-old slave in Maryland. Do you think she was celebrating? Do you think she had time for some scribs and scripts? She was working for the master. And you got the audacity to go and celebrate your slave master's freedom from his master while our ancestors were still slaves? And then you got the nerve to turn around and tell me slavery over? Listen, you can take the slave out of slavery all you want. Take the chains off, dress him up, send him to Harvard or Howard. But until the slave takes the chains out of himself, he'll never be free. He'll never be free. See, there's 2 types of free black people in America. Freedom, F-R-E-E-D-O-M, and freedom, F-R-E-E-D-U-M-B. What are you free to do, freedom people? You're free to buy other people's hair, marry other people's daughters. You're free to spend your money with anybody who don't look like you. And then you're free to act like you colorblind. You're the only people in this country who claim not to see color. I've seen nothing like it in my life. You can have an East Indian, an Arab, Korean, and an Italian. What are you? I'm an East Indian. What are you? I'm Korean. What are you? I'm Saudi. What are you? I'm Italian. And then you go to the black person. What are you? I'm a human being. And then think you being godly by doing it. Listen to me. All people naturally give their children a built-in cultural privilege. The Italian is going to look out for the Italian child before they look out for anybody else's.
That's right.
The Chinese are going to look out for Chinese children before they look out for yours.
That's right.
The Afghani is going to look out for the Afghani baby before he look out for yours. They're not colorblind or culture blind, but you are. Do you know what that means? That means black children not only suffer from white racism, they then got to turn around and suffer from neglect at the hands of their own community because you don't want to admit that racism exists. That's right. So they get miseducated, then they get put in special ed. And what is the weapon of choice in special ed? Something called the specific learning disability. Specific learning disability. Now, what exactly is a specific learning disability? Well, according to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act 2004, signed by former President George W. Bush, a specific learning disability is a disorder and one of the basic psychological processes involved in learning that manifests itself as an imperfect ability to read, write, count, speak, listen, so forth and so on. He said it was a what? Psychological disorder. It was a disorder. and one of the basic processes involved in learning that affect how well you accrue new information. It must be scientific. But is that how your son ended up in special ed? Your son ended up in special ed just because his skills was low. I want y'all to understand something. Learning disabilities cannot be proven. Let me say this again. Reading disability is your opinion. It ain't a fact. Math disability was the white psychologist's opinion. That's not no fact. You're talking to an expert. When I diagnose or don't diagnose, I'm making the best professional guesstimate. It's a guesstimate. Learning disability is a guesstimate. And then you take somebody else's opinion about your child's ability to grow, and you superimpose it on your son. And then some of y'all trifling enough to tell Raheem he learning disabled. Don't worry about it, baby. You LD and read. Don't worry about it, sugar. You LD in math. Do you know what you just did? You just took somebody else's opinion of your child and created an imaginary glass ceiling over which they will never grow. If you want to believe the psychologist's opinion, that's your fault. But don't you dare make it your child's reality. You never tell children their diagnoses. You don't tell them when they LD. You don't tell them when they autistic. You don't tell them when they ADHD. You don't tell them when they emotionally and behaviorally disturbed. And why don't you? Because it breeds low self-esteem. It breeds learned helplessness. It breeds high school dropout, and it will breed his ass right into jail.